Welcome back to the Bonafide Truth. This is part 7 of the Anunnaki and Elohim syncretisms featuring the Netjeru. And in this video, we're going to be covering some more deities such as Itum, Ishat, Italo, which is also known as Garuma. We're going to be covering deities like Pidar. We're going to cover deities like Habayu. We're going to cover deities like Quteb and Deber. We're going to get to deities like maybe Pendagali. That may sound very original to you guys. Ilish. And maybe Shegar. Yeah, that should be the list for today. And these deities are going to be probably the last deities in this series that I go over, though I will be bringing up other deities, and I will make a follow-up video where I bring up some characters from the Bible that have their origins in earlier or more ancient texts. So stay tuned for that. But to get this video started, we're going to start with Itum. Now, Itum is a god that is mentioned in the Ugaritic text and known in Canaan. And this is a god, or rather a goddess, that is known as one of the consorts of Reshef. But when Itum is known to the Anunnaki worshippers or to the people of Acadia and Sumer and Babylon, Itum is actually a god named Isham. And Isham has a very important role that is linked to his connection to Edera, which is a deity that is similar to Nergal, who is the syncretic Anunnaki to Reshef. And maybe Itum, the consort of Reshef, has a similar role in his story, though the attestations are sparse from the Semitic language all the way to Kemet. So from the ancient Near East to Kemet, we see that Itum is mentioned, but we see that there's more info on Isham than there is Itum. And so in the Isham variant, we see that Isham is one of the deities that holds off Era, who is one of the deities that helps to calm down Era, as we see similar to the Bible story about the angel of destruction or the angel of death, because that angel of death is actually Reshef. And we know that Edera is a deity very similar to Reshef, but we know that Reshef is more syncretic with Nergal. But we can also understand that in the ancient Near East, as we move towards Ugarit and Canaan, that these deities may have been compressed or compacted, meaning more than one deity may have been compressed into a singular deity, such as Nergal and Edera being compressed into Reshef. And then we see in Kemet, the Netjeru counterpart, which is very similar to Itum and Isham, is Anher. This is a similar deity that is considered the one who brings back the distant one, or who tries to hold back the god that is similar to a god of destruction from the Netjeru. So we see that this is them carrying on a similar trope from the ancient Near East to Kemet, where we see that there is a god, or in Itum's case, a goddess, which could also be known as a god depending on where you go in the ancient Near East, is one of the ones that helps to calm down or to find a resolution or to protect people from the gods of disease and plague and destruction. Next on the list is Ishat. Now, Ishat is the Semitic goddess of fire, and she is known to the Mesopotamians as Ishatu. So this is a very easy synchronization to find. It's just she is a lesser known deity, because there's another major deity from the Anunnaki that is a deity of fire, which is named Jibal. But we see that this is also found in the goddess named Ishat. Now, this deity could be syncretic with another deity from Kemet named Shesmet. Now, Shesmetet. Shesmetet is another deity of fire. She is a fierce deity that is often seen as like a lioness, similar to how Ashura is seen as a lioness when she is Quraysh in Egypt or Kemet. and she has fiery aspects. And these three goddesses share the themes of fire and purity and the destructive divine power and protective wrath. You know, just as Itum and Isham are protecting us from other gods of disease, well, this would be a similar type deity, Ishat, which would have a protective type connotation, but also have a destructive type connotation because it is a fierce fire. Next up is a more obscure deity named Pidar, which is similar to Pidre in terms of the name, but Pidar is a different type deity. This is a warrior deity that is known for his martial strength and possible underworld connections, and he may even be some type of powerful deity like Gataru, as we see, but there's also a similarity between him and the Anunnaki named Edragal. Now, Edragal is actually a deity of the underworld. He is connected to destruction. He is a guardian with warrior aspects, and he is associated with death, plague, and conflict, which is similar to Pidar. Pidar is also associated with death, plague, and conflict, as many underworld deities that are war deities are associated with. And then for his Netjeru sync, I would have to say that Mantu would be the best sync, because Mantu is similar to Reshef. As you can tell, we are going through some deities that are underworld adjacent or disease and death and destruction adjacent, but also adjacent to fire. So Mantu is also similar to Reshef, but he can also be seen as similar to Pidar, which is a warrior-like deity, just like Mantu, because Mantu is known as the god of war. He is symbolizing the military prowess and strength and the fiery aspects of the sun. This is much coded in the way that Reshef is, or the other underworld deities, or the deities of disease are coded, because diseases were seen as have like a burning sensation to some people because of the scorching desert that these areas were at. They would get sunburned, they would get skin cancer, all types of things. So that's why Reshef and other disease-bearing deities and fire-bearing deities are so constant. So to continue on the notion about disease-bearing deities, we're going to go through three more that are associated with this type of realm. And the first is going to be Habayu, which is a deity that is known in the Ugaritic text as a deity of a demon-like destructive diseases, and he is associated with devastation. So this is a deity that is pretty much just like Reshef, just like Isham, or just like Ishat, or just like Namtar, just like Nergal, just like Edra. This is a deity of disease and destruction and death. And then his Anunnaki counterpart would be Asaku. Asaku is the Mesopotamian disease demon. He causes the wasting, illness, and destruction. This is exactly what Habayu does. The Ugaritic people are borrowing from Sumerian pantheon, or their list of deities and demons, and this is where they got Habayu from. And next up, we're going to go over Quteb and Deber, which we've already mentioned partially in another video, but we're going to fully just cover them in this video. Quteb is syncretic with the Anunnaki god known as Meslamta Ya, or Meslamta Ea. Now, this is once again another deity of pestilence, another deity of plague and destruction, and he is mentioned in the Bible, and he is mentioned in other Canaanite texts. And then we see that Meslamta Ea is associated with Edra and Nergal and Namtar, and that just as him and his twin Lugal Edra are assisting the plague and war and disease and destruction god of the Anunnaki, so does Quteb and Deber. That is why Quteb is syncretic with Meslamta Ea. And then for their Netjeru counterpart, that would be Shesmu, the god of slaughter, the god of punishment. Shesmu, he is the god of destruction, execution. He is the god that's called the slaughterer of souls. He is a fierce protector, or a fierce executioner of the wicked, and he is a benevolent protector of balanced and of the great. Next up is Deber, who could also be known as Samanu if you go to other areas in Ugarit, but in the Bible he is called Deber. and this is a deity of pestilence, and he could also be syncretic with the Anunnaki named Lugal Era. And his best sync under the Netjeru is Samanu, because the people of Kemet acknowledged this deity and they gave him a role in their pantheon. So for Deber, who could also be called Samanu, he is syncretic with Samanu, who is the same Netjeru god as Deber, or as Samanu when he's known in Ugarit and Canaan, and in Mesopotamia he is known as Lugal Era. Next up, we have a goddess by the name of Pendigali, who is an Elohim goddess that is worshipped by the Hurrians and Hittites and the people of Ugarit, or in the Levant. And she is syncretic with a goddess named Nenegal. This goddess, they are goddesses of the palace. They are both attested to in the gods list as being syncretic with each other, because these are the goddesses of the palace. They are the ladies of the palace, and they are the guardians of sacred authority. So this is also another easy syncretism if you have heard about this goddess. And then she is also known in Kemet as Wajet. Wajet is the goddess that is the guardian of kingship. She is the defender or the protective cobra goddess. So we see that they are copying, or that they are sharing the same themes and motifs as the lady of the house that is protecting the kingship. We have another minor Elohim, but very much still associated with things that we see similar to Kotowakasis, for example. And this is a deity by the name of Ilish. Now, Ilish is a deity that is known to be a craftsman deity, and this deity even has his own consort and has his own lineage, but we are missing a lot of evidence about this. But we do know that there's evidence that hints towards his story being similar to Kotowakasis, and him having some type of connection to El, whether being one of his angels or being one of his assistants or his messenger. But we know that he has an association with El, and he is known as Nenegal, which is a female deity when you go to the Anunnaki variant. But as we know, these deities can switch genders depending on where they're being worshipped, who they're being worshipped by, and the political and social stance that these people have. And then this deity, when we go to Kemet, would be known as Seker. Seker is a minor craftsman deity that fits the same or similar role as Ilish, or as the deity known as Nenegal. So we see once again the same trope being transferred or copied or shared across the ancient Near East and Kemet. Next up, we have two very interesting deities, and these are the last on the list. We have Shagar. Shagar is a deity that is attested to by the people of Ugarit and Canaan. They attested to this god there, but this god is also attested to in greater Mesopotamia as Sagar. And this is a god of herding and livestock. You know how they have the Iwi goddess, which is named Datur? Shagar and Sagar are the same god that is being attested to across Mesopotamia, the Middle East, and even in Kemet. Because in Kemet, we have a god that is very similar, who is known as Bat. And Bat is a goddess of the cows. She's a goddess of the livestock, just like Shagar, just like Sagar. So we see the same themes being transferred over from the ancient Near East to Kemet. And lastly, we're going to get to a very interesting deity. And if you stay tuned for this, you might enjoy this one. Lastly on the list is a deity by the name of Garuma. Now, that name may not sound that interesting to you at first, but Garuma is also known as a Phoenician god, which is another area where the Elohim are worshipped, as Italo. Italo is the god that is the mound, or the primordial primeval mound that is holding up the earth, or that holds up planets. So this would be akin to like a core, or the crust of the earth, to be exact. So Italo was also known to the Hurrians and the Hittites as Ubaluri, which is a deity that is going to help me bridge this to where I'm trying to take it. And that is, Ubilary is a deity that is supposed to be holding up the earth or holding up the foundations of the earth. This sounds similar to a Greco-Roman deity known as Atlas. And then you can also hear that in the name Italo. I think Italo gave it away, but Italo is the Elohimic connection. This is the connection between the ancient Near Eastern gods from Canaan, from Ugarit, from the Levant, from Mesopotamia, from the Arabian Peninsula. This is their connection to the Mediterranean. This is where we see that these systems of gods aren't just connected to the Netjeru and the Anunnaki. The Elohim are also connected to the Mediterranean gods, who we would call the Olympians or the Titans or whatever. These gods are also seen as being descendants of the Elohim, or as being descendants of the Anunnaki. So we see that they're pretty much carrying on the legacy of the God that's supposed to be holding up the earth, the God that is supposed to be Atlas adjacent, or the origin of Atlas comes from Italo, and Italo comes from Ubilary, and Ubilary comes from Garuma. And then in Kemet, we have the same type of deity named Tatanen. This is a deity that is once again supposed to represent the primordial mound of the earth, or supposed to be representative of a god like Italo that is holding up the earth or maintaining the suspension of the earth. So this is where we see that these ancient pantheons and these ancient theological systems have their similarities. They have their differences, of course. It's not just all black and white, but it is very nuanced, and we can see the similarities. We can compare and contrast, and we can see where they're getting these ideas. Some of these ideas may have rose up or may have came out of an original thought from seeing the same phenomena or even meeting the same entity. If these were real gods, if these are real gods, if these were real beings, then they may have saw the same beings but under a different name, under a different light, or at a different time. All we know is that there is similarities between the Elohim, the Anunnaki, and the Netjeru. And there will be more to get into about this, but this has been the Bonafide Truth. Like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what you think.